What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. Good to be back in the saddle with everyone. And of course, we're brought to you by our good friends from Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. Use sports equipment, goods, baseball, football, lacrosse, hockey, you name it. They have it open 7 days a week. And how about this? Our guy, Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us on a Wednesday, as we will typically do Tuesdays and Wednesdays with Lloyd, our NFL Insider, but always good to catch up. And we always think the NFL season never really sleeps. We got the draft around the corner. We've got some big quarterback news in our backyard, which we're going to get into, and we're going to dissect, hopefully, a little NFC East. But how you been, my friend?
Doing great. Yeah, you're right. Busy time of the year. And, I wish the draft was this week, but, there's a week more worth of some talking, and we'll see who's going to go number one.
Yeah, let's get into the NFC East in a moment. But the two big, I think, stories that are coming down, really, let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Jalen Hurts contract. And, people will look at these contracts when it comes to the NFL quarterback position, and they will try to break down, dissect, kind of throw shade on the deal. But at the end of the day, Howie Roseman did a fantastic job. I mean, look, this kid is a drive away from not only being a Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champ, but maybe having the most historic performances in Super Bowl history for a very young quarterback. And this is what happens, right? When you take your team that far, he's a proven leader, winner. We saw the numbers go up. We saw the leadership. We saw the stats, the statistics. I know a lot of people want to talk about, well, he had the weapons, he had the offensive line. End of the day, you knew a deal was going to get done. Were you surprised by these numbers? And when you really kind of walk it back a little bit and gloss over the contract, it's a pretty good deal for Jalen Hurts and for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, Q, Howie Roseman came into the Eagles organization as a cap guy. So he understands the cap and he knows how, contracts fit and these extensions. And first and foremost, the Eagles are giving extension to a quarterback they got in the second round. So he'll play in 2023 on his rookie deal, which is huge. They'll be able to sign some more guys. And then as the contract ages, it's going to be more cap friendly. So I know there's a lot of sticker shock in hearing 5 years, $255 million total, $179.3 million guaranteed. Those are some huge numbers. So technically right now he is the highest paid player in the National Football League. But as you were saying, Q, these things are very fluid. And we know Joe Burrow is going to get a new deal and he'll probably supersede this one. And who knows what's going on with Lamar Jackson, but very good deal. And I looked at what the future years are going to contain. Howie Roseman did a good job in terms of crafting this and how it's going to affect the book. So the salary cap goes up about $20 million this season, and the Eagles should be in a good place to kind of build their base for their future. Obviously, earlier in free agency, they went after a lot of their veterans, re-signed those guys. So they're at least good for one more good run this season, and then the future will take care of itself.
And some flowers, no pun intended, to his agent, Nicole Lynn. I mean, listen, for someone to DM a player and try to rep them and kind of, shoot your shot, that's a fantastic job by this young lady. I mean, when you negotiate that, you get those numbers. And when other players start to see that, guess what? Your phone starts to blow up. But this is where we're at, right? The quarterback position. But I just didn't want to dismiss the job that she did. And look, she's got the legal background. She's an attorney. She knows exactly what the hell she's doing. She bet on herself, and her and Jalen Hurts are going to cash in. But it's the quarterback position, right? It's the nature of the position. They touch this the most throughout the course of a game in an NFL season, and the pressure is always on the quarterback. You win and die with the quarterback. That's why the wins and losses are tagged to the quarterback. When you look at Jalen Hurts now, because of the money, obviously with that contract, with the guarantee, expectations now go up to another level. Now, mind you, he's potentially a drive away from having an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. So I know it's kind of a soapbox question, a loaded question, but how much responsibility now and how much pressure is going to be on Jalen Hurts to not only get this team back to the NFC Championship, back to the Super Bowl, but ultimately win it within the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, you're right, Q. That bullseye is going to be on his back. And once you get that, that big price tag around you, and you're handed the keys to the franchise, and you're the franchise guy, and they're going to build everything around you. Yes, the pressure is there. Obviously, we know a lot of quarterbacks have difficulty getting back to the Super Bowl after losing. We'll see how Hurts adapts, but his numbers are right up there last year with everybody else. Yes, Patrick Mahomes won the MVP, and he proved that he was the best player in the league, but Hurts was not far behind. 3,701 passing yards, 760 rushing yards in the season, 35 total touchdowns. And those are the numbers that you're talking about. When you're at that 35 plus touchdown mark, and you're the guy that's driving your team, and everybody believes in him. This is a very young team, and now they have their young leader that's going to be locked up for a number of years. So he's going to be 25 going into next season, but very young, and I expect him to only ascend. And, as we said about the Eagles are not afraid to lock their quarterback up. They did it with Michael Vick. They did it with Donovan McNabb. They did it, nobody wants to talk about it, but they did it with Carson Wentz. So now they give Jalen Hurts, the stamp of approval. And I think he moves in the next season. And obviously we'll talk about the NFC East more in a second, but they're still the favorites in their division. And you'd have to say they're the favorites right now in the NFC as well.
Where's their weakness as we look in the NFC East and kind of go around the division? I mean, right now, you handicap it right. It certainly should be the Philadelphia Eagles, then Dallas Cowboys. Washington's still in a mess. I mean, we can talk about them, which we will in a couple of moments. And then you had the Giants maybe slipping in third, winning a road playoff game with Jones and Saquon Barkley, but they have some issues as well and holes to fix. So when you look at needs, wants, where are you at with the Philadelphia Eagles right now? Are we talking linebacker, secondary, perhaps another running back? I mean, where's your thought with the Eagles and them going forward with the draft right around the corner?
So you're talking about a team that won 14 games last season. So you're right. There's not a lot of holes there. But in talking about, I knew we were going to do our draft preview kind of with these teams. The Eagles' offensive line is still very stellar, but they've got some age there. So they could use a younger offensive lineman to put in the mix. We've talked over and over again about their linebackers and their safety position, how that's not a priority for this team. And they kind of let these guys walk from that Super Bowl squad, like TJ Edwards and Epps, but they got to fill holes. So, and you'd like to have a frontline guy in that back part of your defense. The Eagles just have not had that in a number of years, Trotter, Dawkins, it's been quite some time since they replaced those guys with legitimate players that can make some plays. Yes, they had Malcolm Jenkins step in for a couple seasons, and he did a nice job, but then he moved on, and it just seems to be a revolving door. So if they could solidify those positions, I think that would help a lot, particularly that defense got hurt by Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl. So I think they'll be looking at those positions going into the draft and the rest of free agency.
Yeah, we'll go a little harder next week early on the draft. Then you look at the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, look, we know some of the change they made with the offensive line, with some of their weapons, and Elliott, Dax getting older, wide receivers are getting older. To me, I just feel as though it doesn't matter what they do until they get over this moniker, this hump of choking in big games, not making deep runs in the playoffs. I'm not trying to disrespect them at all, but the facts are this. I'll leave it for the national talking heads to talk nonstop about the Dallas Cowboys, right? I mean, because ad nauseum after a while. I just don't think that Dak Prescott is a top echelon quarterback anymore. I honestly, I don't. I think we saw last year when push came to shove, even when he gets nicked up here and there, the inconsistency, the bad turnovers. Elliott, you want to say that's a loss to some extent? They got a better back and a younger, fresher back right now. We know about the wide receivers. Their secondary to me is still feast or famine. And I still think ultimately, you take Parsons off that defense, you still need a legit 1-2 combo to get to the quarterback from a pass rush standpoint. I just don't see it.
Yeah, this is an interesting team as well. Yes, they won 12 games and they finally won a playoff game. But you're right. Key spots, it just came up short. And when they get knocked down to playoffs once again, you look at their owner, who's also a GM. Let's not forget that Jerry Jones getting another year older, guy who's 80 years plus, and he wants to win. But the way they build their team, is it today's NFL? They always seem to try to find that running back, and they have that big offensive line who they've invested in. And but injuries and age are really catching up to this roster. So, I'd see Dallas that they're trying to retool this thing. So they get Ezekiel Elliott out there. There was not much left tread on the tires in terms he was 27 years old. They let him walk. He's in free agency. No one signed him. I thought, though, the losing Dalton Schultz at tight end position is going to be very interesting because they need him to work the middle of the field. He did a good job in the red zone as well. So they bring in Brandon Cooks. They bring in Steph Gilmore in a nice little trade there, and they re-sign Bandra. So they do have some pieces there, but there's some age, and then you wonder, did they do enough to catch the Philadelphia Eagles? And I just don't think they've done enough at this point. And now Mike McCarthy is going to be their key play caller, because let's not forget that Kellen Moore, they let him walk. He's going to LA Chargers.
Yep.
And that's a big loss for this team. So lots swirling around Dallas. As you said, national news is always with them, but there's plenty of other teams to talk about, and they still have a lot of work to do in terms of jumping the Eagles and being a true contender in the NFC.
Yeah, and they'll probably go for a tight end. I mean, you're hearing the buzz, the kid from Notre Dame, the Michael Mayer kid. That's a popular name right now. Until I really see that run like we saw with the Philadelphia Eagles, like we've seen in the past with the Giants, even though different regime and whatnot, I really can't take the Dallas Cowboys serious, just like I can't take Washington serious, right? I mean, we're still waiting to see exactly what's going to happen with the sale of the team. We know they brought in another veteran quarterback as a bridge quarterback. They've got some weapons, but like Mike McCarthy with the Dallas Cowboys, my confidence level is extremely thin and wavering, if you will, when it comes to Ron Rivera. Now, granted, I thought the hiring of Eric Bieniemy will help them from a play calling and schematic standpoint. But if you don't have the quarterback, right, that's why I still believe they should have made a deep run for Lamar Jackson and build around him. But be that as it may, when you don't really have the quarterback in place, it's really tough to build around the quarterback. It's tougher to build the offensive line. And I just think it's a bridge right now for the Washington Commanders. Like, I just don't see them. Even the defense last year, right? We talked about the defense in August, but their main stars were constantly hurt. I mean, when are we going to get to see Chase Young at full strength? Maybe that changes the narrative a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, but I just look at Washington as a 6, 7, 8 win team again.
Yeah, they won 8 games and 8-1, and this is a team. Bieniemy will help. He will bring some inventive things to that offense. But as you're saying, with Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett, who they brought in, you know what you're getting from those guys. They are stopgap quarterbacks, and they're just not the playmakers in today's NFL that's going to scare a defensive coordinator. So you got to find somebody to come in there and fix that position. They're picking at pick 16. Maybe something will fall for them, but I don't think so. They're probably going to have to move up if they want to get into the top 4 quarterback range and make a big change there, or maybe they try to bring back, somebody like Kirk Cousins, or something in free agency. But you're right, Q. A lot of swirling around Washington, and can they fix that situation? It's looking like Joshua Harris, who's the owner of the Devils and the Philadelphia 76ers, is going to be their owner. They're trying to work that all out. $6 billion price tag. I think just getting, the mess that is Daniel Snyder away from this team will help it ascend. So, lots going on there. And when I look at Washington, a big thing they have to do is fix their offensive line. They allowed 48 sacks last year, and a quarterback was under duress quite often. So, right now, when we talk about the NFC East, handicapping it, you have to put Washington in the basement. So a lot of work to do there. It's going to be interesting to see what they do next week.
So they jettison Wentz, obviously. You've got Hal, you've got Jacoby Brissett, Jake Fromm. So they're drafting, where they draft
16 in the first round.
Okay, so you got a veteran, you got a soon-to-be second-year quarterback on the books, right? And I don't know how you can seemingly be content with that situation. I don't get it, unless they really believe that Sam Howell is the answer going forward, which then leads me to this. If they do, and they can win games with their defense, a healthy defense, then 16 right there tells me they're going to have to go and probably draft a wide receiver. I mean, the kid, they got the kid, what was it, Robinson, the kid that got shot?
Yeah, Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. who was their number one pick last year from out of Penn State. So they got a couple pieces there at the wide receiver position, but
And running back.
yeah, one running back. They lose J.D. McKissick, so we'll see what they bring in there. They're still kind of middle of the road in terms of their offensive weapons, and I think they need more because they're just not putting points on the board. A lot of their games were, they were kicking the field goals over and over in the red zone, and they need somebody that's going to punch it into the end zone. So Sam Howell, I saw a lot of him when he was at North Carolina. I think right now he looks like just a guy to me. Everybody, of course, is looking for the next Brock Purdy, and they think they can find lightning at the bottom. But I think there's only one Brock Purdy in that situation that worked out for San Francisco. So, I think Washington, Rivera, as you were talking about earlier, Q, when you first talked about this team, I think he's on hot seat. I think the enemy's coming in there. They gave him a pretty long contract, and he's coaching waiting to me.
Agreed.
So I think. Mayhew, the general manager there, he's been there for a little bit, and then they kind of set the situation. Rivera was brought in to keep everything in good order and when the house is burning down, which he's done a very good job caretaking this team. But I think, in terms of him being a top level coach, who's kind of past those years when he was with Carolina.
Yeah, he hasn't had a lot of winning seasons. I mean, he had the one run where Cam Newton was an MVP. They went what? They won 15 games, I think, that year, 14-2, 15-1, whatever it was. They got waxed in the Super Bowl by Denver in that defense. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some of these guys, as you mentioned, Robinson's the kid that has that good backstory.
Right, Brian Robinson. Yep.
Yeah, from the shooting. I mean, I guess that leaves me then, what if the other kid, Robinson, the running back, is going to be on the board? Right. That's going to be an interesting pick, right? And the other thing that I look at Washington, if you had a viable option at the quarterback position, you might have won 9, maybe 10 games, but we saw what they did against the Eagles. They were really able to run the football. That's because of their offensive line. I think it was an aberration that night against the Philadelphia Eagles and their run defense. I still think there's a ton of holes to fix. Even if they do, quote, sell, I think it's more for the fan base to have belief in them. But you're right, you get rid of that toxicity of Daniel Snyder. And then that leads us to the New York Football Giants. And I still think the Giants will probably go wide receiver. It wouldn't shock me if they tried to fix the offensive line again. It wouldn't shock me if they tried to go linebacker. They really haven't had a legit linebacker in years. I mean, you can probably argue the last very good or solid linebacker they had was Kavika Mitchell and Antonio Pierce. I mean, they just really haven't had depth at the linebacker spot. So where are you at with the Giants right now?
Yeah, the Giants are a solid team, as you're talking about, Q, and they have a few holes. Now, they did, they figured out the way that they gave Daniel Jones that big contract, so he's going to have to live up to that. And Saquon Barkley have franchised him, so they're going to bring in those two back. But I kind of agree with you that wide receiver needs that infusion that we're talking about. You have Darius Slayton, who they re-signed. They bring in Paris Campbell, another middle road guy. Surprisingly, they brought back Sterling Shepard. They re-signed him, and they bring in Jamison Crowder from Buffalo. So, you're talking about a room that has a bunch of just guys. Who's going to be that guy to punch it in red zone or on third down? He's going to get that big play for you. So I know they thought it was Kenny Galladay. They signed him. They finally got rid of him this offseason. But a lot to fix a wide receiver for them. I still think they need a tight end. A cornerback maybe, and you talked about that interior line earlier. So there are a couple of key areas that I think they need to look at.
Yeah, I was just going to say with the wide receivers, I would have let Shepard walk, and I would have brought back Richie James, to be honest. And then
James would seem like a good young player. He made some big plays when they need it here and there, particularly near the end of the season. And he has that burst. Sterling Shepard coming off a lot of injury seasons. You just wonder how much this guy has left.
Yeah, and they'll get back Wan'Dale Robinson as well, coming off an injury, but still they need that prototypical Galladay height, build, and reach stretch down the field, but a guy that can actually get open and catch the friggin' football. So yeah, I put the Giants right around third place. I think, the schedule is going to be tougher. I think they take a step back a little bit. Do you believe there's a scenario where Saquon Barkley holds out?
I think Q, he may hold out into training camp. He'll sign that contract. He's going to get $10 million, and for the running back position, that's pretty much the going rate right now. And teams have seen over and over again that they're able to find running backs late in the draft or free agency, undrafted guys. So, I think he's going to have to take what he gets and then goes from there. I know they drafted him so high just not that many years ago, but the position is devalued. So I think he'll sit, but eventually, probably around July, near that the key signing date, he'll come in, and don't, as long as he doesn't sign that contract, they can't find him or anything like that. So, but I think he'll want to be with the team, and he's a team player. I don't see him doing the Le'Veon Bell route.
You know what? I don't know, man. I don't know. The Giants don't pay running backs. They put 12.1 on the table. He balked at it. I think that was their way of saying take it or leave it. I think if anything, if he plays out this year, that's it. He's done as a Giant.
Yeah, I think you're right. He may play that out and then sees what out there. But we all know the market is just so slow for these running backs. Ever since that Todd Gurley contract, teams are very apprehensive to give these guys these big contracts. I know Christian McCaffrey got that big deal from Carolina, but they even ended up trading him to the Niners.
Yeah, it's funny because with the 27 and Q pod with Brandon Jacobs, Brandon mentioned to me when he was re-signing, he was saying, the Giants don't pay backs, and he was trying to get that Marion Barber type of money. If you remember that contract that Marion Barber signed, but that's a good point that you highlighted with Todd Gurley. Listen, I think he's sending a message by avoiding an off-season program. And to me, we can sit there and say, team player, here you go. He came back. He had a wonderful season, bounce back year, put up monster numbers. And people are not going to want to hear this, but he's still injury prone. He's one hit away. One tackle, one tweak, whatever you want to call it, from missing 2, 3, 4, 5 games. So if you take him off this roster, yes, there's a substantial a weapon that you're losing. But I also have seen teams win running back by committee. I've seen it before, and we know he's unhappy with the tag. We get it. So it's not going to change unless there's an agreement in place for a big-time lucrative long-term deal that pays him among the top running backs. Is Saquon Barkley a top 3, 4, 5 running back right now?
I'd say top 10. You know what I mean?
Who would you put? Give me 4 or 5 running backs you would put before Saquon Barkley.
Interesting. I definitely think Indianapolis Colts Jonathan. I'd put him up there first. Eckler possibly ahead of him.
Dalvin Cook.
Maybe Dalvin Cook, maybe Jacobs for the Raiders. They're all kind of on the same. You know what I mean? So there's not that bell cow thing you're looking at. Even Derrick Henry for the Titans. You maybe probably put him ahead of them, but he seems to be wearing down, and the Titans seem to want to move away from him. So the position is just so devalued. It's just. For two guys that grew up in an era where everything was a running back, you know what I mean? Emmitt Smith carried those Cowboys teams
to
3 Super Bowl titles. Barry Sanders, one of the all-time greats, LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk. I mean, you could go on, and teams didn't mind paying those guys. But now they all the GMs and people in personnel that I talk to, they all say, all right, I'll build a very good offensive line, and that'll help the running back behind him.
Yeah.
But, they almost talk about Miles Sanders for the Eagles last year. The Eagles had one of the best line. And then the Eagles say, you know what, Miles Sanders, we're good without you. And we're bringing Rashad Penny, a guy who was very injured for Seattle, but we'll take a chance with him with our offensive line. And then you look at what Andy Reid did with the Chiefs in particular. He's letting Jerry McKinnon walk, but Isaiah Pacheco was just a key to that team.
Yes,
he was a very late round draft pick coming out of Rutgers.
All right, good stuff. Again, Lloyd joining us every Tuesday, Wednesday on BYP. Rich Quinones here from our good friends at Played Against Sports. All right, lastly, before I let you get out of here. So for the cynical Jet fans, a lot of my friends and some of my relatives, the Aaron Rodgers thing, it's interesting because we know it's not done, right? We can sit there and say, the car's down from the lift. Here we go. Tires are on. Engine is cooking, but we still haven't started it up, so to speak. So is there a possibility that this trade does not go through?
No, Q, I think it's going to be done. I think they're going to do it after the draft. And we've seen a lot of these personnel departments you're going to see after the draft, probably in May when a lot of these contracts expire. You'll see a lot of changes in these personnel departments, and they'll bring in the group that they're going to go move forward with into the season. And I think a big change is Joe Douglas, the general manager for the Jets, knows he has his spot all cleared for Aaron Rodgers, and they want to work their draft board, see what kind of capital they can trade. Maybe they trade a 2024 pick rather than a 2023 pick and get this done. But I'm hearing Gutekunst, who's the general manager for the Packers, as well as Mark Murphy, who's they don't have an owner, but he's the chairman of the board up there. And they pretty much are saying they're moving on without Aaron Rodgers. So they'll get this thing done. I think the sticking point is that they want a first-round draft pick coming back to the Packers. And that's a lot for quarterbacks. It's going to be 39 years old and seems to be descending. So they'll have to work out a package, but I think it will get done.
Okay, so we'll agree that he's getting traded, but I guess I should rephrase that. Is there a scenario where you say it's not the Jets? Because now all of a sudden, and a team that I brought up a while back, San Francisco, and I have to give Brandon credit again because he called this months ago. He wasn't even joking. He said they're going to try to trade Trey Lance. And now the report is they want to try to trade Trey Lance. They think Purdy's going to be the answer going forward. So, I look at this, and if you're San Francisco, why would you not want to try to make a run at Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah. John Lynch, their general manager, and he's a very smart guy, former player, Hall of Famer. And he's a guy who he's going to do what's best for his team. And you're right. Purdy's probably, I know he didn't have Tommy John surgery, but they kind of did a big procedure on that elbow this offseason. So you can't really count on him. Jimmy G's gone. Trey Lance, they don't know what they have in him. And why not bring in somebody as a frontline guy? I don't, Rodgers from out that way. We know Tom Brady's from out that way. But I think in the end, it's not going to be either of those guys. I think that Rodgers will go to the Jets, and it's a total compensation package thing. And everybody I'm talking to is saying Brady is happy being retired this time. So, Trey Lance, is he the guy? I think they'll give him a chance in OTAs, see what they have with him. But, he may not be the guy on opening day taking the first snap.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's just, to me, the whole thing, I just, when stuff like this happens, I feel as though there's always these caveats, right? And I not discrediting anything you're saying because I value your opinion and your insight and your connections and whatnot. But I think this is a little more complicated than what's really being reported. And part of me also thinks if there's one player to just say, you know what, F this, I thought about it and no, because the ink technically is not dry from our knowledge, then that player would be Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah, you never know what Aaron's going to do. They go on the McAfee show and announce, I'm retiring, or I've talked to the Packers, we've kissed and made up, but
would that not be
this is a very strange situation, Q. We haven't seen this in quite some time. The deal's been done. It's not done. They're back and forth. I guess it's a Packers quarterback thing. It reminds me of old Favre flip-flopping from back in the day.
What a tease if he turned around and said, you know what, I thought about it. I went into the darkness for an hour. And I think I'm just going to call it a career.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me with him. It is strange, Q, that they have not gotten this thing done and just worked out the compensation and said, okay, we're moving forward without them.
Yeah.
They seem to be moving that direction, but they will not finalize it, which is, it's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes for good content. I don't mind that. So
Yeah.
it'll be crazier if he decides, he's going to balk and retire. Of course, Lloyd Vance at Lloyd Vance, NFL writer, researcher, historian, PFWA award winner, former ESPN NFL contributor, NFL Network, BCHOF selection committee as well, and does a great job covering the ins and out of the NFL. All right, my friend, next week we got to go heavy. We'll go through the draft. We'll come up with maybe some trade scenarios, and then we'll start to continue with the rest of the NFC. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 24, 48, 72 hours? I mean, the NFL is so goofy, as you've said it for years. This is the one sport, it does not sleep. It just doesn't.
Yeah, the NFL, NBA playoffs going on and everything, USFL, XFL, but the NFL is front and center, and you're going to see the ratings go through the roof for this draft.
No, it's going to be fun to watch, and we'll dissect it next week. Always appreciate you jumping on board on Wednesday edition of BYP, pal.
All right. Thanks for having me on.